Hi everybody, today I'm going to show you how to create a GitHub repository using the command line in Mac or PC. This is my GitHub page here. I can see my repositories listed on the left here. And all I need to do to create a new GitHub repository is to click the New button. Now, before I do that though, I want to make sure that I have a folder on my local machine from which I'm going to push the files on my local computer to my remote GitHub repository. So first, let's create a folder on the local machine. We'll do that using terminal since I'm on Mac, but if you're on PC, you would just use command prompt. So instead of searching for terminal, you would just search for command prompt in the search bar. Once you're in terminal or command prompt, you will be placed into a directory on your computer. In this case, I'm working in the directory of my user account, Nicholas Reese. And if I want to see all of the files and folders within that directory, I can type ls on Mac or dir for directory on PC. Both commands do the same thing. So I listed out all of my files and folders here in my user account with ls, but I don't have a folder that I want to use as my GitHub repository on my local machine. In order to create a folder, I have to use the mkdir command. This is the same on Mac and PC. It's mkdir followed by a space followed by the name of the repository or folder. I'm going to call it git example and press enter. And now if I list out the files and folders, I'll be able to see git example has been created on my local machine. Now, in order to make changes in this folder, I need to actually change directories into it. And that command to change directories is the same on both Mac and PC. It's cd followed by a space followed by the name of the repository. And you can see that my working directory has now been changed to git example. If I list out the files and folders, I'll see nothing because it's empty. So let's create something here so that I have something to actually add to GitHub. And so the command to create an empty file on Mac is touch, followed by a space, followed by the name of the file. I'll call it example.txt. And if I list, I can see there is my example.txt file within my GitHub git example folder. On PC, the way to create an empty file is copy null followed by the name of the file. All right, so we have an empty file. Let's just add some text to it. The way to open up a file from terminal on Mac is open followed by a space followed by the name of the file. That's going to open up example.txt in my text edit application. Type in some text. Save and close. By the way, on PC, the way to open up a file is just by typing the name of the file like this. And that will open up the same way I just did with open. All right, so we have our GitHub repository folder on our local machine called git example. It has one file in it with some text. And now we want to go about connecting our file on our file and folder on our local machine to the remote repository on GitHub. And so before we can do that, we have to actually initialize that in our local machine. And the command to do that is git init. And that is going to initialize a repository. So we're ready to start connecting our folder from our local machine to our remote repository in GitHub. Now it's time to come back to GitHub and create that repository. I'm going to do that by just clicking the new button in the repository section. And I give it a name, the same as the name on my local machine. It doesn't need a description. I'll make this public so anyone can see it. And I'm going to choose to not give it a README because I might want to do that later. And then I click Create Repository. And that's it. Now I have a repository created, a remote repository created in GitHub. And all I need to do is connect the repository on my local machine to the repository in GitHub. And the command to do that is this one right here, git remote add origin, and then the URL. And all this is doing is saying we're going to create a remote repository, and we're going to call it origin, and the URL or the address of that repository is here. I paste that command into my command line and press enter. All right, so we're ready to start putting files from our local machine onto GitHub. And the first thing we need to do is put our local files from our machine into what's called the staging area. The way you do that is you type git add space dot. What this command does is the first command, git, says, command line, I'm going to be issuing git commands after this. Add is a git command. It means add whatever files come after the word add, you're going to put them into the staging area. And dot tells your command line that you want to add all of the files that are inherited by the folder that you're currently working in. So right now I'm currently working in the GitHub Git example folder, and that has one text file in it, example.txt. So I'm just going to be adding that example.txt file to the staging area. And when you're sure that the files are ready to be committed and sent to GitHub, the next command is git commit -m and then a message. So the commit command is a git command. It says just put whatever is in the staging area and commit it, so that we're committing these changes and we're sure we want to make them. -m is a message flag, which allows you to append a message to your commit. Press enter, and you can see that because there was nothing committed previously, I've changed one file and I've inserted one file. The final command, once you've committed all the changes from your staging area, is to push. And the first time you push a repository from your local machine to a remote repository in GitHub is a little bit different than the times you do it after that. The first time you're going to use this command here. So I just copy that and pasted it into my command line. Git push -u origin master. Push is a git command which says you want to push whatever changes you have committed with git commit. -u is a flag which says you want to save the connection that you're making right now so that in the future you don't have to issue all of these if you use the -u command, GitHub is going to know that the repository you're currently pushing from your local machine is going to be connected to the repository that you're currently pushing to in GitHub. After that, origin is the remote repository that you're pushing to. Remember, we created that origin repository earlier when we said git remote add origin. And master is the branch name. You can learn more about branches at Git documentation, but basically all this means is that this is the primary branch of your remote repository. And I'm going to press enter. And we're going to see one file was changed, one was inserted. We enumerated over 3 objects. All of them were complete, and the master branch was pushed to the master branch, meaning my primary branch on my local machine got pushed to the primary branch on the remote repository. And now, if we come over to the GitHub repository and we refresh the page, we're going to see that those changes from my local machine are now here in my remote GitHub repository.